I think when people see we're in it genuinely for like the martial arts and to help the team opposed to just profits, like they see that the more team oriented you are, the more people want to come train. Whereas if you're only in it for the money, that is seen immediately and it's very off-putting.
Welcome to the Combat Creative Podcast, where we explore the heart of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, uncovering its creative, entrepreneurial, and leadership qualities with guests who embody what it means to be a leader in our BJJ community. Now on 3, 1, 2...
Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Combat Creative Podcast. I'm really excited for this episode today because I'm in this beautiful academy here in Texas with Alex Morono. And some of you may know him from his UFC career, but today I'm excited to talk to him about coaching and this beautiful business he's built. So Alex, thanks for coming on the show, buddy. Nice to meet you.
Cool, my man, thanks for having me. Alex Morono here, Gracie Baja, The Woodlands, been around since 2007. I started training here when I was 16. We had a different location, but I'm the owner now. I've been coaching here since I think 2012, and it's been so much fun ever since.
So you haven't always been in this beautiful location. You just told me you opened up during COVID, this location, but before we get into that, I think one of your students told me you used to share a CrossFit space, and it hasn't always been like this. So take us back to those earlier years of when you took over the academy.
Yeah, so very grateful for my first coach, Chad Robichaux. He actually is in the podcast game himself, but he's doing some pretty cool political and even military work. But we opened in 2007. I was a teenager. I worked behind the front desk on Saturdays just to help out, helped build the location out, and things were going well. The gym expanded. A lot had happened since then. There were some ownership handoffs. I was kind of in it through the thickest and the thinnest parts. I'm glad the business stayed alive during some of the tougher times. And then in 2015, I had become the head owner alongside my wife, Janice, who is the mastermind behind the business here. I do the martial arts. She does all the numbers. This place would not be alive without
Shout
her.
out to Janice.
Shout out to Janice, my wife. And yeah, it's been a long story, but the last maybe 6 or 7 years has been by far the strongest and best the gym and the business side has ever been. So I learned a lot of what not to do in my earlier days, which has helped to be successful later in life.
What was different, Alex, that took it from struggling to now it being in the more successful years? What are some of the things that you put into the business or yourself?
Just genuine consistency. I was always there, always training and coaching and teaching and competing. But the logistics side, the business side was a bit inconsistent, as I didn't start as the owner, nor did my wife. It was purchased and then kind of guided appropriately. And once there was just consistent leadership, is when we really started finding success. And then with my group of coaches now, again, consistency is so important. As a student, I like to know exactly what class would entail, the warm up, the style, is it on time? And so we try to be really on our P's and Q's in terms of scheduling and consistency. And then and so I do anything on the mats or in the cage is my business, and anything in terms of marketing and payroll and taxes, that's my wife's job. I tell people all the time, I could not do this by myself. I don't think I would enjoy doing it by myself. I owe so much to her. So it's an awesome certain partnership in the business.
That's such an important part to, I think a lot of academy owners I've talked to start to overlook. They fall in love with this hobby, this sport, and they want to feed their family with it. Who wouldn't? But then they realize it's more than just rolling.
It's certainly more than just jiu-jitsu. And then what's funny, one thing, and it's almost like a logic loop. If you try to bleed as much profits out of the students as possible, people see that and they're this place sucks. So once we got to the point to where we could pay our bills and we knew we were safe, we we still naturally having new students, but we like to keep our current students happy. I just want to keep my current students as happy as possible. And if we can pick up some new people, great. But it also gives us a really strong filter. We don't have to take everybody. So it's important that everyone understands what can we do for the team, not what can the team do for us. And when you have 50 different people trying to help you out, it's so much better than 50 people asking for one person help. You know what I mean? So it's just it's a great community. My striking coach, Matt Wald, I couldn't do this without him. He does all of our striking. He says it usually comes from the top down. And we were referencing sometimes high school sports. If the coach doesn't particularly like his role or doesn't shoot out the idea of helping your teammates out, everyone's going to be out for themselves. We're like, it's here. It's like, what can I do for my students? And then what can my students do for me? They're always asking. People are always asking for help or to help. And man, I just can't be happier with like the community we've built here at the gym.
Getting your black belt can't guarantee that you're gonna have a full academy, but good marketing does. Most jiu-jitsu professors are incredible at what they do, but that doesn't mean they know how to grow a business. If you're tired of empty mats and inconsistent student growth, well, we fix that. At Combat Creative, we help gym owners become the go-to academy in their city through professional content and strategic marketing. You've built a great program. Now let's get the right people in the room to experience it. Are you ready to grow your academy and become the go-to martial arts authority of your city? Well, click the link below to book a call with us today. What are some things you do to keep that retention high?
I think when people see that like we're in it like genuinely for like the martial arts and to help the team opposed to just like profits, like they see that. And it's funny, like the more like team oriented you are and like competition success driven, like training success driven you are, the more people want to come train. Whereas if you're only in it for the money, that is seen immediately and it's very off-putting. And so it's funny, I like made a rule, I don't allow myself to do any of the program work for the system, like because I'm too nice. I'm like, yeah, everyone come train, it's so much fun. And my wife's like, yo, the bills need to get paid, so we have like hard standards that must be kind of like accepted throughout all, and it's great. And then honestly, there's a lot of guys who run small businesses out of my gym, and we love supporting them. And they're like, no, do this for. I'm like, no, I refuse to take anything for free. We must pay you. And I was like, you guys pay me at the gym. Like, we're happy to support. So anytime you have a friend and you want to see them succeed, it's good to support their business. So like, we get the small business mindset and style, and we are happy to support any of our students.
That's great. One thing that I got from an interview from an academy owner in Orlando, he was talking about how learning the business side of it, because loving jiu-jitsu isn't enough. You have to learn business. And we are often, the students, we come in and learn it from you as an expert. But he was like, we as the jiu-jitsu expert, sometimes we have black belts in other areas, like others, maybe they're an accountant, a lawyer, and so have you ever leaned into any of your students for guidance or advice if they're expert in an area?
Oh man, all of the time. I have like a student who has a field of experience everywhere. Like if we ever need anything, whether it's like home construction, like loans, legal guidance, police officer work, I have a guy for everything. And thankfully, I'm their guy for martial arts. So I even went and recently spoke to some Boy Scouts. I like giving back to the community, especially kids, because I started doing martial arts when I was a kid, and it like genuinely changed my life. So I do everything I can in my community to make sure that like kids know there is a good path in martial arts if they seem lost. So I'm usually the go-to guy for like career days and like martial arts talks, and then I have a ton of guys who I can rely on for really pretty much any scope of business.
I want to talk a little bit about branding. So I've been traveling to Houston for work for 5 years now, and it didn't take long before I started hearing the name thrown around, Gracie Barra, the Woodlands. And it was always a little too far for me because I was usually doing stuff on the south side of town, working with my customer. But what a academy. So you're under the branding and the affiliation, I guess, of Gracie Barra, but man, Woodlands MMA, like that's what I hear. So I've seen that it looks like you've built one of the most respected MMA schools in Houston. How do you brand both of those? Because I've filmed in some Gracie Barras and they have like the different color mats. So just talk about what it's like working with them, but also having your own branding of Woodlands MMA.
Sure. See, I think we're a little grandfathered in, as we were the second Gracie Barra here in Houston. I'm not too sure in Texas, but in Houston for sure. Draculino, my professor, was first, and I'm pretty sure we were second. And again, this was back in 2007. A long, long time ago. And yeah, Gracie Barra has always been so great. Anytime I've ever had like a problem I couldn't troubleshoot myself, I would always go to Draculino or Opiano for advice, and they've always been excellent guides. And people ask me, they're like, why don't you do your own thing and start your own team? I'm like, if I'm not going to set the example of loyalty, then who will? And Gracie Barra has always gone above and beyond to help me out, and I'm happy to represent that red shield, as we call it. And then in terms of like the mixed martial arts and like the kickboxing side, the Woodlands MMA is just kind of like how we're known on the north side. I like to call it Gracie Barra, the Woodlands MMA. But just to make sure to have like total like freedom of branding and not to potentially step on any toes on like the GB side. The Woodlands MMA is another really cool like kind of like team within the team. And we had 10 adult submission only matches at an event the other day. 10 no-gi matches, 10 wins. We went like 10
Did you
0.
really? That's
it's
amazing.
the best we've ever done. Not so bad for a bunch of gi players, bunch of guard pulling gi players. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that was awesome. That same day, one of my amateurs, Zach, and one of my pros, Josh, fought for Fury, and they both won their fight. So we went like clean sweep for the adults, 12-0. It was really cool.
It was a great day.
And like anything, it didn't come overnight. You know, I've been doing this since I was a teenager, day in and day out. I do commentary for Fury. So I get to watch cage side and jiu-jitsu, like submission only matches all the time. That's one of my favorite things to do. I just like love watching tape and watching matches and breaking down techniques. And like as an instructor, I really do understand the techniques and I can break them down. So when I do the cage side commentary, I feel like it's the same exact world and I'm very comfortable doing it. And beyond that, I'm maybe like the biggest fan of MMA you'll ever know. So getting to watch the fights cage side is awesome. Getting to know the fighters is really cool. But really, I get to teach and train every day. I get to compete myself, and I get to watch fights as like a side hustle. So, I mean, I have no complaints whatsoever.
Commentating cage side, how has that helped you evolve as a coach?
Well, one, as a fan, it's kind of spoiled me. Now, if I don't have cage side seats, it's not as fun. But I get to really just like understand the statistics, like what moves work the most, what moves work the least. You know, take away the moves that are terrible and then super work on the moves that are the best. So I'm like a man of statistics, especially when it comes to like decision making in combat sports. And I try to relay that to my students as well. And I feel like we get a really good like blend of like good practical techniques. And then also sometimes there's some techniques that are flashy that don't work very well. So we try to really focus on the fundamentals.
Shed a quick light for maybe somebody listening who doesn't know. How many years have you been competing now?
So I started training in 2007, in January of 2007, and then I took my first kickboxing match in October, and I won with a head kick KO, and have been stuck ever since. I forget when I first did my jiu-jitsu tournament. I was a one-stripe white belt, so it was probably before that. It was a blast. I got super gassed out and lost on points, but had an absolute, had the time of my life. And so I've been competing since 2007, and I've had like, I don't know, almost probably 40 pro fights now. Yeah. And I mean, it's been a ton of fun. It's been so many, I couldn't even give you a number.
So you've made the transition now from being a competitor to one of the most respected MMA coaches in the Houston area. And that's quite a big leap that not everybody is able to pull off.
Yeah, thank you.
And what shifted for you when you had to step more into that coaching role? And what do you think it is about your approach that resonates with your students?
So in 2012, the guy who opened the gym had moved, and I was pretty young, and I was a bit caught off guard. And like, I am not one to like wallow in anger. I figured out a solution, and I effectively kind of took over all of like the fight camp logistics and matchmaking for the team. So I've been doing that since I was like 21. So thankfully, I've had a great relationship with most all of the promoters here in Houston. Mick Maynard was one of them. Now he's matchmaking for the UFC. But yeah, Chris Lopez for Elevate and Eric Garcia, especially for Fury. Those guys are throwing shows all the time, and they were training partners of mine, friends of mine, and thankfully now we get to work together. And I've learned, just don't burn bridges. So long as it's a good person, like keep the relationship always as positive as possible. And then like logistically, like I do all of like the tape study, and my coach Matt Wald, we do all of the tape study, and I handle all of the matchmaking for my students, whether it be for submission only matches or for MMA fights. And then naturally, like doing tournaments like Jiu-Jitsu World League and grappling games, you know, there's brackets that are pretty big. So it's kind of like we'll figure out the style to beat the specific opponent then and there. But that's just been a part of the game that I've always been a big fan of. And then early on, we were like fight anyone, anytime, anywhere, and like that's cool, I guess, but tactically not very smart. So I had a couple of fights early in my pro career that I think I took at the wrong time. So I take a lot of the lessons that I had learned by trial and error, and I apply them to my students now. And I make sure we take the right fights at the right time. A great example is my guy, Killshot, Joe Hendershot. He's one of my 22-year-old pros. He's 3-0, but he's fighting a good guy, Mauricio Gomez, who's 5-0, a good black belt. So it's by far Joe's toughest fight, but he's got some real good experience as a professional. And I think this is the right time to really test to see how he does at the next level. So it's not like we're taking easy fights. We're taking hard fights, but just at the right time with the right skill set. And that tactical mindset and the tactical study is one of my favorite things to do. My coach, he's up in Dallas, Saif Saud, got over 100 wins in the UFC. He is like the best guide and role model I have ever met in my entire life. So every time I fight for him and win, mission accomplished, I'm always very proud. But he teaches me so much. I mean, more than just the fighting side.
Hey, real quick, I just finished rolling and I'm exhausted here at the Academy, but I had to pause to give a quick shout out to Gold BJJ. Now, I've been using their products for years. I train in their gis, I compete in their gis, and I use their products every single day. It's high quality, affordable, and they're designed by jiu-jitsu practitioners for jiu-jitsu practitioners. I actually had their co-founder, Mr. Cole South, on the podcast. He was one of my very first episodes, and I had a great time talking to him, learning about the company and what makes them unique from other jiu-jitsu brands. So go ahead and check that out. And if you'd like to support the show, the best way that you can do that is click the link below and grab some gear for yourself. But Gold is not sponsoring the show directly. It's you guys when you shop at the link below. So go ahead and visit goldbjj.com/combatcreative. That's goldbjj.com/combatcreative. Thank you guys so much. Now back to the episode.
So you mentioned your coach. I heard that you still travel up there to Dallas a couple times a week at Fortis, right? And what is still driving your personal growth as a coach and as an athlete?
So as a coach, I watched. So when I was a white and blue belt, YouTube existed, but only to watch pirated Dragon Ball Z episodes. It wasn't owned by Google yet, and there was no like ad revenue.
Dude, I remember those days.
So like learning jiu-jitsu, there was maybe DVDs, but like you were kind of like doomed to learn whatever's shown at your gym. Now there's so much good instructional information. So every week I text all of my coaches the curriculum. Like, what are we doing this week? And then it could be the subject I'm most versed in, but I'll still watch tons and tons of instructionals to like one, reaffirm what I know, pick up on the small details, and then often learn new stuff. And if I learn new stuff, I won't teach it. I'll go certainly try it, make sure it becomes like part of my game, and then show it if I'm comfortable. But it's so easy to learn now. And that's just on the jiu-jitsu side. On the MMA side, Coach Safe has taught me more than I could ever know. I'm still fighting and competing. I plan on fighting and competing at least for a few more years.
To touch on like what types of competitions or events?
So as of right now, just fighting in the UFC. So I just had my 23rd fight in the UFC. My goal is to get to 30.
It's pretty recently, right?
Yeah, it was last March. I fought a super tough Brazilian, lost the fight, but it was a tough opponent. It's actually the most... it was like the worst odds I had ever had. So like therefore on paper, it has been my toughest fight in the UFC so far. And it was a fun fight. It certainly was a tough fight. But I feel like I have maybe 2 or 3 years left, like good years left of fighting like comfortably and healthy. So I'm going to make the most out of that. And yeah, so I drive up to Dallas. It's about a 2 hour and 45-minute drive.
Yeah, it's not close.
And when I'm in fight camp, I make the drive. In the beginning of every week, and then if coach ever calls me and is like, hey, someone has a fight coming up, they need help, I'll make the trip and help those guys out. But I enjoy Dallas. I fought in Dallas in the UFC on a pay-per-view card. It was on the prelims, but I ended up getting a decision win over a tough dude. So like Dallas to me is like an awesome martial arts city. I go there to fight and I go there to train, and I've always had nothing but great experiences. So Dallas is like a second home. But Coach Safe really is a mastermind in MMA, and every time he says anything, I make sure to listen and memorize and learn as much as possible.
Are you able to take a lot of what you're learning there and then bring it back here for your students?
100%. So like Coach Matt Wald, I mentioned him before, he's my striking coach. So like Coach Matt and I, like Coach Safe is our coaching coach. He teaches us how to teach.
Coaching coach.
He's our coaching coach.
Love that.
So yeah, my striking coach has really kind of changed his style. Very direct, and this is cage fighting. If the guys go in unprepared or with the wrong mindset, they'll get hurt. We've seen a lot of guys, not our guys, thankfully. We've seen a lot of guys get hurt bad because they weren't prepared, and that'll never ever be our team.
Alex, what does leadership look like to you? Not just on the mats or as a professor, but as far as building, going back to the academy, building a culture here, because you talked about retention being so high.
Yeah, so I try to like allow my students to be problem solvers, not problems. Like if anything bad ever goes down, I want my students to be the person that everyone's asking for a solution, especially for the youth. We have a huge kids program, and like my goal with the kids is, one, if they ever get into like an altercation, can they keep themselves safe? And then two, as they become adults, can they solve problems instead of creating problems? So like in my mind, giving back to my community is like creating the next generation of problem solvers, of like young men and women who can, address issues and find solutions on their own without, going for outside help or expecting anyone to solve their problems for them.
It's really important. I think just as a school teacher, seeing kids go through all different types of things, and I kind of wish some of the students I had an outlet other than just basketball or soccer, and I love sports. I know a mutual friend of ours, Chris, who introduced me to you. He's a school teacher here in town. He's really pushing to get it into schools, and I think he's making some headway on that finally.
Yeah, Chris Reed's one of my black belts. I've known Chris forever. He's the man. He always wins like the best teacher award in a school. He's always super cool.
What do you think newer academy owners or first-time coaches tend to misunderestimate about this path?
So we've been in business coming up on 20 years. And if you're like a new academy owner, expect to train with a lot of brand new people, which is cool. It's part of the game. But like in like an average Thursday class, I'll have like 6 or 7 black belts on the mats and a ton of higher level guys. And so the training's very abundant and very fun. But starting a new team is going to be a bunch of new grapplers, and you have to invest into them because they're going to be the black belts in the future. So just expect a lot of like fundamental work. Man, beyond that, I don't know. I had such a strange kind of upbringing because as a white and blue and purple belt, I was just a student and like was coming up into like my early adulthood. I was like 20 years old. And then as I went brown and black belt, I became an instructor. And then after that, I became the owner. So I got to see a lot of really good lessons, but didn't quite have to experience like the downfall from it, like the the consequences. So I really tried my hardest to pay attention and to see what worked and what didn't work, and really tried to build a foundation on like the most effective tactics available relative to the objective at hand.
When you think about building this, what has been one of the most difficult parts of it, and how did like you and your wife and team overcome that?
So our old location flooded twice. One of the AC systems was always busted. We were not friendly with our landlord. Like, it was time to get out of there. And then like we have this awesome move planned, all cool with the lease and everything. But then COVID hits. And then so we had to make sure the gym didn't go out of business. I mean, thankfully, this is where the UFC came in. I fought, I think, 5 times during COVID. And I think I went 4 wins and 1 loss. So like that funded pretty much everything we did. So like without the UFC, I would not have been able to do what we did with this location, not without getting an insane amounts of debt, which
We do, yeah.
yeah. So that helped. But I mean, I can only really speak to my experience. However, if like you're in it for the love of martial arts, like anyone, we actually have a ton of students. Anytime like I get to know the students and I see their field, and I'm like, why don't you become your own boss? Why not start your own practice, whether it be auto shop work or whatever? And a lot of guys have taken that step out. So if you guys look around, there's some really nice paintings here. Now, granted, I didn't give him any advice. He did this on his own. He's one of my brown belts. His name's Frankie Cardona. And he's actually like a pretty like locally well-known artist. He does big giant murals, like photorealistic paintings. And he had done the paintings for this gym, but he had a good job at the railroad, union, all this fun stuff, but he ended up quitting and becoming a full-time artist. So he truly chased his passion and has been very successful. I actually saw him yesterday. I was like, hey, how's business? He's like, man, it's good. And I'm like, you still loving the art? And he's like, I'm still loving the art. And I just love hearing stories like that, because you usually see guys play the safe road and stay in the job and work a 9-to-5 they don't really like. And it's scary to go out on a limb and do what you love, especially in like an artistic form. But I've been very grateful that it's worked out for myself, and I've noticed it's worked out for a lot of my students. And just any advice out there to anyone, if you feel like you're really good at your field, see if you can't be your own boss and start your own business. You'd be surprised how successful it often is.
I remember when I was at the ceiling of where I was working. It was my family's business. I was working for my cousin, and they were so good to me, and it was a successful business. And I was really kind of like, what do I do next? I was content, but my wife was like, I don't know, like, you need to be praying about this. Like, what's next? And I got a call from a company. I was doing media, and they said, hey, who's the agency that you work for that does all your media? And I'm like, what's an agency? And they're like, well, the people who make your videos. I'm like, oh, I'm just doing that. And they're like, wait, what? Like, do you have a degree? And I'm like, no, I learned on YouTube. But I just like made a lot of videos and then I made a lot of mistakes. And I thought that was an interesting call. Well, then within like 48 hours, I had about 5 different businesses in different way, like reach out. Like, who's the business that does your stuff? Or, hey, I see the stuff you're making. And I called my wife and I was like, she's like, you should go for it. And I was like, yeah, but I was pretty, she's more I think I naturally am a risk taker, but in my upbringing and culture and parents, they really put me to be safe in this box, where my wife's more like, just send it. And so she's like, you can always go back. Like, don't burn a bridge. She's like, so you're thankful for your family, you're thankful for this job, right? Like, go all in on yourself. What do you have to lose? Do it the right way, and you can always go back. I can always go back to sales. I can always go back. I was a school teacher. So, I mean, that's a good way to look at it. I'm really glad I took that risk. What about you?
Yeah, I rarely have seen people not have a good outcome there. One thing, it's funny, I got to shout out to my dad as well. So I have my older brother. He owns his own business, and then my dad always owned his own business. He did a pool installation company. He's from New York, moved down to Texas in the 80s and started doing that, oddly enough. And he'd always tell my brother and I, like, be your own boss, be your own boss. And like, I was like, all right, yeah. But then, like, fast forward a couple decades, like, my brother owns his own company, I own my own company, and it seems like what he said had resonated, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, I enjoy working, with my wife every day. We get to hang out all day, every day. Thankfully, we both get along extraordinarily
Awesome.
well. I think it's our
I
personalities.
love that, dude.
But yeah, I have no complaints. I'm very grateful every day for what I get to do.
Do you have any kids?
I have two-step kids, so yes.
I have 3 with my 4th on the way, but my son's 12 and he's coming up with like a new business idea every day, which I wonder if I grew up in, my dad was great. He worked in the auto industry, went to work every day in Detroit, but it's really interesting. I wonder if I would have been kind of like how my son is. He's coming up with a new business idea every day, and it'll be really interesting what path he takes. I'm going to push him towards it. It doesn't mean that there's a season of like apprenticeship or working somewhere or learning, but I'm really curious to see. You didn't hit it right away, but you grew into it and found it.
Not at all. And I didn't make a lot of money as an assistant coach and as a local fighter at all. It wasn't until like a couple contracts into the UFC that it started to actually really work. But man, and like any teens watching, anyone in high school, everyone's like, what are you gonna do after high school? And they're like, and there's no answer is okay. I had no clue. I knew I was not gonna go to college. I didn't want to sit another hour in a classroom. I actually had traveled. I taught jiu-jitsu in South Africa for like 10 months, visited Brazil, and I had no clue what I was gonna do. And I ended up doing some like labor work for a few years, realized I wasn't gonna do that forever. And then the moment I got like an assistant coach's role opportunity, I took it, and I've been grown from there ever since.
Alex, just looking at everything that you've built so far, what are you most proud of?
Certainly the gym and just the level of success my students are having when they compete, and then the culture. What I'm most proud of is the culture at the gym. Like how everyone is helping everyone out. No one's being reckless. Like we prioritize safety a lot, but like the student retention consistency has been just tremendous over like the last 5 and 6 years. And I'm not too sure why, but I've noticed about 5 or 6 years ago, I've had kids who started with their 4 and now they're like in their teenage years. Like my guy, Joe Hindershot, who's fighting on Sunday, he started training with us when he was 10 years old. He's 22 now.
What? It's gotta be so rewarding.
It really is. So yeah, the culture of the gym is what I'm most proud of. And then from like as a competitor standpoint, I fought Cowboy Cerrone on short notice and I beat him. And that's kind of my claim to fame. So it's like my big UFC win. I've got 13 wins in the UFC, so I'm pretty proud of those as well.
You should be, man.
But the only reason I like the wins in the UFC is so like my students, like the students know their coach went through the fray, went through the fire, came out on the other side, and I'm teaching them some techniques that I've used in the Octagon. So that's pretty cool too.
Well, it's definitely paying off, man. Your students that we reached out to and interviewed, they just spoke so highly of. They actually spoke highly of just like your style of teaching and the way that you instruct. And I think that comes from like your love for this. You're also your ability to keep learning with your other coaches. And it's not surprising to see that we're here in North Houston area and there's a thriving, beautiful gym. A lot of hard work. Didn't happen overnight, but I hope you're proud of it. It sounds like you are.
Yeah, so knowledge is the secret to success.
It's on the wall right over here.
Yeah, so it was actually Coach Safe. He told me knowledge is the key to happiness.
Okay.
So it kind of modified the saying a bit, but so I always try to learn. I try to learn something new every day. We have YouTube.
Yeah.
You can learn
Dude, it's
whatever
wild.
you want, whenever you want. So every day I try to learn something new. It's usually jiu-jitsu related.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not. And I do set goals. Every year my wife and I set like hard goals. And it was maybe like 2 years ago, we sat down and had our goal conversation, and I was like, I don't know what goals to set, which is the best problem ever. So, but we make sure to always set goals. And once we achieve them, we set new goals. We make them within reach. We have like some long-term goals. And then we always have like yearly short-term goals. And you have to set goals with a deadline. Being in fight camp since I was a teenager, I always had like a date I needed to maximize preparation by for the fights. And so I got super date goal-oriented driven. And that has helped a tremendous amount as well.
Well, man, that was great. Alex, thank you so much for coming on, dude. I really appreciate you taking the time, letting us film here in your beautiful academy. So, guys, I just want to encourage you to check out Alex. If you're not already, Alex, how can people find you in your academy online?
I'm maybe the least active social media person, but our gym is not.
I know, you could do better.
So, Gracie Baja, The Woodlands on Instagram, and then Alex Morono on whatever.
It's great.
And you'll find it.
Absolutely. Well, folks, thank you. With all the videos and podcasts you could be watching on the internet, the fact that you took time out of your day to watch and listen to this one, Alex and I really appreciate it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.